The autumn wind howled through the ancient stones of Monte Cribia's palace as Artemis Lavalli knelt before King Lucian, her travel-stained cloak pooling around her like spilled wine. Her eyes, once bright with the confidence of nobility, now bore the red rimming of tears, shed during 3 desperate days of riding through treacherous mountain passes. The monarch observed her from his carved throne with calculating coldness, his fingers drumming silently against the armrest as guards flanked the great hall like marble sentinels. 5 nights, he pronounced, his voice cutting through the silence like a blade drawn from its sheath. The words reverberated off the vaulted ceiling as he slid a parchment across the polished oak table between them. "That is my offer, Lady Laval." Artemis's trembling fingers barely grazed the document that could mean salvation for her son. The pardon bore the royal seal, crimson wax gleaming like dried blood in the candlelight. Outside, storm clouds gathered over the palace spires, and the wind rattled the stained glass windows, as if nature itself sensed the tempest brewing within these walls. "I accept," she whispered finally, the words scraping her throat raw. With those 2 syllables, she felt her dignity crumble like ancient mortar, each fragment cutting deeper than the last. The journey to Monte Cribia had been a nightmare of desperation and dwindling hope. 3 days and nights in the saddle, stopping only when her exhausted mare stumbled, her heart heavy with a mother's worst fear. The mountain roads were treacherous in autumn, slick with fallen leaves and morning frost, but Artemis had pressed on with single-minded determination. "Please, Damien, hold on," she had murmured like a prayer to the howling wind, clinging to the hope that she might arrive in time. Her son's face haunted every mile, 22 years old, with his father's honest eyes and gentle smile. The boy who had never raised his voice in anger, who helped tend wounded animals and shared his meals with beggars. The accusation had arrived like a thunderbolt 7 days prior. Royal messengers in their crimson and gold had delivered the sealed parchment to her manor house at dawn, their faces carved from stone as they announced her son's fate. Damien Lavalli, a member of the Royal Guard, had been charged with high treason against the Crown of Monte Cribia. "The evidence is conclusive," the lead messenger had intoned without emotion. "Execution is scheduled for 10 days hence, by order of His Majesty King Lucian." Artemis had collapsed to her knees in the courtyard, the parchment falling from nerveless fingers. Damien, her sweet, honorable Damien, accused of betraying the very crown his father had died defending. Captain Rodrigo Lavalli had been a war hero, a man whose name was still spoken with reverence throughout the kingdom 5 years after his death in the Battle of Thornfield. The impossibility of the charges had driven her to this desperate gambit. Her son possessed neither the cunning for conspiracy nor the heart for betrayal. He had joined the Royal Guard to honor his father's memory, following in footsteps that had always led toward loyalty and service. Now, as Monte Cribia's imposing walls rose before her, like judgment itself, Artemis steeled herself for whatever price the king might demand. The fortress crowned the mountain like a stone crown, its towers piercing the grey October sky. Banners snapped in the wind, bearing the royal arms, a golden lion rampant against a field of deep blue. The main gates groaned open as she approached, revealing a courtyard where armed guards moved with practiced precision. Their captain, a grizzled veteran with scars mapping his weathered face, stepped forward to block her path. "State your business, woman," he commanded, though his tone softened slightly as he took in her quality clothing and the bearing that marked her as nobility, despite her bedraggled state. "I am Artemis Lavalli, widow of Captain Rodrigo Lavalli," she announced, drawing on reserves of strength she hadn't known she possessed. "I demand an immediate audience with His Majesty regarding my son." The guards exchanged meaningful glances. Even 5 years after his death, Captain Lavalli's reputation commanded respect. He had saved the king's life at Thornfield, dying with an enemy's blade in his chest and his sovereign's name on his lips. "Wait here," the captain ordered, disappearing through an iron-studded door. Artemis dismounted on unsteady legs, her muscles cramped from days in the saddle. Since her husband's death, She had managed their estate with careful precision, expanding their holdings and improving conditions for their tenants. She had never sought royal favor or involved herself in court politics, preferring the honest work of land management to the serpentine intrigues of the palace. The guard captain returned after what felt like hours but could only have been minutes. "His Majesty will receive you," he announced, unable to hide his surprise. "Follow me." The palace corridors were a maze of wealth and power, lined with tapestries depicting the kingdom's glorious history. Artemis walked between walls, adorned with portraits of long-dead kings, their painted eyes seeming to judge her desperate mission. Courtiers in silk and velvet paused their conversations to stare as she passed, her travel-stained appearance marking her as an outsider in this perfumed world. The private audience chamber was smaller than she had imagined, but no less impressive. Rich carpets covered polished marble floors, and tall windows offered commanding views of the valley below. Behind an ornate desk sat the man who held her son's life in his hands. King Lucian of Monte Cribia was 35 years old and had ruled with an iron fist for a decade. Tall and lean, with black hair touched by premature silver at the temples, he possessed the kind of presence that commanded immediate attention. His face was angular and intelligent, with dark eyes that missed nothing. It was not classical beauty, but something more dangerous, the magnetism of absolute power. "Your Majesty." Artemis dropped into a deep curtsy, fighting to keep her voice steady. "I am grateful for this audience." The king studied her with unsettling intensity, as if cataloguing every detail of her appearance and demeanor. "Lady Lavalle, your journey from the northern provinces has been swift. I assume you have come to discuss your son's situation." "Yes, Your Majesty. Damien is innocent. He would never betray the crown his father died defending." Lucian rose from his chair with fluid grace, moving to the window that overlooked the kingdom spread below. The dying light of afternoon cast his profile in sharp relief. "The evidence suggests otherwise, my lady. Compromising documents were discovered in his possession, detailed plans for an assassination attempt on my person." "There must be some mistake," Artemis insisted, stepping forward and forgetting protocol in her desperation. "My son worships his father's memory. That loyalty runs through his very blood." The king turned back to face her, and she caught a glimpse of something unexpected in his expression, not cruelty, but weariness. "Loyalty is indeed a rare commodity in these times, Lady Laval. Your husband was an honorable man, one of the few I could trust completely, but children do not always follow their parents' example." "I beg you, Your Majesty," Artemis said, her voice breaking slightly, "allow me to see this evidence. Permit me to speak with my son before you take his life. If, after that, you remain convinced of his guilt, I will accept your judgment without question." King Lucian regarded her for a long moment, something shifting in his dark eyes. "So certain are you of his innocence?" "I would stake my life on it," she declared without hesitation. Silence stretched between them like a taut bowstring. Finally, the king moved to his desk and withdrew a scroll from a locked drawer. "This is the evidence," he said, extending the document toward her. "A letter addressed to the Duke of Volturna, detailing weaknesses in the royal guard and my daily movements." Artemis accepted the parchment with trembling hands, studying the writing with the careful eye of a mother who had taught her child to form letters. The script resembled Damien's hand, but something was subtly wrong, the slant of certain letters, the formation of specific words. "This is not my son's writing," she said firmly, looking up to meet the king's gaze. "It resembles his hand, yes, but I have known his penmanship since childhood. Someone has attempted to forge it." Lucian's eyes narrowed dangerously. "That is a grave accusation you level, my lady." "No more grave than condemning an innocent man to death," she replied, surprising herself with her boldness. "I implore you, Your Majesty, give me the opportunity to prove that my son has been made a pawn in someone else's game." The king studied her for what felt like an eternity, weighing not just her words, but also her character, her desperation, and her unwavering certainty. When he finally spoke, there was something predatory in his smile. "Perhaps there is a way," he said slowly, "but the price will be steep indeed. Are you prepared to pay it, Lady Lavali?" Artemis felt her breath catch, sensing the trap closing around her, even as hope flickered to life. "I will do whatever is necessary to save my son." King Lucian moved with the calculated precision of a chess master, each gesture deliberate and meaningful. This was how he had kept Montecribia prosperous while neighboring kingdoms fell to war and famine, through careful strategy and ruthless pragmatism. "Your son is not the true target of this conspiracy," he revealed, approaching an ornate cabinet and retrieving another document. "He is merely a convenient scapegoat, chosen to deflect attention from the real traitor." He spread a second scroll across the desk, and Artemis leaned forward to examine it. This letter bore the seal and signature of Duke Giancarlo Montessori, the king's own cousin and chief advisor. "Duke Giancarlo has been orchestrating a rebellion for months," Lucian explained, his voice heavy with betrayal. "Your son's supposed treachery was designed to provide a distraction while the Duke consolidated his power. The forged letter was his handiwork." "Then why not simply arrest the Duke?" Artemis asked, confusion clouding her features. "Politics," the king replied bitterly. "Giancarlo commands significant loyalty among the nobility and maintains alliances with foreign powers. Moving against him without irrefutable proof would trigger a civil war that could destroy the kingdom." Understanding began to dawn in Artemis's mind. "And my son's execution is part of your strategy to unmask him." Lucian nodded grimly. "The Duke believes his plan has succeeded, that I have fallen for his deception completely. This confidence will make him careless, giving me the opening I need to gather the evidence required for his arrest." "What would you have me do?" she asked, though part of her already suspected the answer. The king moved closer until she could see the flecks of gold in his dark eyes. When he spoke, his voice was low and controlled, each word precisely measured. "You will remain in the palace as my special guest for the next 5 days. That will give me time to complete my investigation and ensure Giancarlo's downfall." The implications hung in the air between them, like smoke. Artemis felt heat rise in her cheeks as understanding crystallized. "Your lover," she whispered, the word bitter on her tongue. "My nightly companion," he corrected with clinical detachment. "5 nights in exchange for your son's life and the exposure of a traitor. I consider it a reasonable bargain." Artemis recoiled as if he had struck her, revulsion and desperation warring in her chest. "You ask me to prostitute myself to save my child." "I offer you a transaction," Lucian replied impassively. "Your body will be mine each evening. In return, I will work tirelessly to prove Damien's innocence and ensure the true traitor faces justice." The room seemed to spin around her as the full weight of his proposal settled upon her shoulders. She had prepared herself for many possibilities, begging, humiliation, even offering her entire fortune for her son's freedom. But this cold, calculated corruption of her body was beyond her darkest imaginings. "You are a monster," she breathed. "I am a king," Lucian corrected without emotion, "and you are a desperate mother. We both understand you will accept my terms." The terrible truth was that he was right. For Damien, for her beloved son who faced death for crimes he had never committed, Artemis would endure any degradation, pay any price. "How do I know you will honor our agreement?" she asked, grasping for some thread of security in this web of corruption. The king returned to his desk and quickly penned an official document, affixing his royal seal with practiced efficiency. "A conditional pardon," he explained, extending the parchment toward her. "Effective in 5 days' time, contingent upon your cooperation." Artemis accepted the document with hands that shook like autumn leaves. The pardon was genuine, bearing all the proper seals and signatures that could spare her son's life. "And if I refuse?" "Then the execution proceeds as scheduled," Lucian replied with chilling simplicity, "and you will have squandered your son's only chance for salvation." Artemis closed her eyes, drawing strength from memories of Damien's laughter, his gentle nature, and his unwavering love. She thought of him sitting alone in a cold cell, unaware that his mother was bartering her soul for his freedom. "I accept," she said, each word feeling like a nail driven into her own coffin. The king nodded in satisfaction, as if he had never doubted her capitulation. "A wise decision. A servant will escort you to your chambers. Rest well. I will visit you when night falls." As Artemis moved toward the door, Lucian's voice stopped her. "One final stipulation, Lady Lavalle. No one must learn of our arrangement. To the court, you are simply a grieving mother, whom I have housed out of respect for your late husband's service." She turned back to face him, mustering the last remnants of her dignity. "Compassion? You speak of compassion while demanding the most intimate violation." The king's smile was cold as winter moonlight. "Perhaps you will discover that I am more complex than you imagine, Lady Lavalle. These 5 nights may surprise us both." The chambers assigned to Artemis were luxurious beyond anything she had known, even during her marriage to Captain Laval. Silk tapestries adorned the walls, depicting pastoral scenes that mocked her current situation. A fire crackled warmly in an ornate hearth, and tall windows offered views of the palace gardens where peacocks strutted among carefully manicured hedges. Palace servants had drawn a hot bath and laid out a gown of white silk, so fine it seemed woven from moonbeams. As Artemis lowered herself into the scented water, she tried to prepare mentally for what lay ahead. 5 nights. She could endure 5 nights of degradation if it meant Damien's freedom. The first night arrived with inevitable finality. Artemis sat on the edge of the massive bed, wrapped in the gossamer gown that made her feel more exposed than if she had been naked. Her dark hair fell in waves around her shoulders, and despite everything, she remained beautiful, a fact that seemed to mock her current circumstances. King Lucian entered without ceremony, wearing a black velvet robe that emphasized his pale complexion. He moved to a side table and poured himself wine from an ornate flagon, drinking silently as if she were merely another piece of furniture. "Would you care for some wine?" he asked finally, his tone as neutral as if they were discussing the weather. "No, Your Majesty," Artemis replied, her throat dry despite her refusal. Lucian nodded and finished his drink methodically. Then, with deliberate movements, he extinguished all the candles save one, leaving the room bathed in intimate shadows. He approached the bed and let his robe fall to the floor. "Remove your gown," he commanded in that same neutral tone. Artemis obeyed with mechanical precision, letting the silk whisper to the floor like a dying breath. What followed was clinical and joyless, a transaction rather than an act of intimacy. The king took what he had purchased with neither tenderness nor cruelty, simply claiming what their agreement entitled him to possess. When it was over, he rose immediately, dressed with efficient movements, and walked toward the door without a backward glance. "Tomorrow night, same time," he said before departing, leaving Artemis alone with her shame and the lingering scent of lavender from the bedsheets. She remained motionless for a long time after his departure, tears streaming down her cheeks as the magnitude of her situation fully registered. It wasn't the physical act itself that wounded her most deeply, but the complete dehumanization, the reduction of her entire being to a commodity in a political transaction. Yet as she pulled the silk sheets around her trembling form, Artemis reminded herself of why she endured this degradation. Somewhere within these palace walls, Damien waited in ignorance of his mother's sacrifice. 4 more nights. She could survive 4 more nights. The second evening brought subtle changes that Artemis noticed immediately. When King Lucian arrived, exhaustion lined his features like battle scars. His usual controlled composure showed hairline cracks, and his movements carried the weight of burdens that even absolute power could not lift. "Has there been progress with the investigation?" she dared to ask as he performed his ritual of pouring wine. Lucian paused, the goblet halfway to his lips, as if surprised to hear her voice. For a moment, he seemed to remember that she was capable of speech, that she possessed thoughts and concerns beyond their sordid arrangement. "Son," he answered tersely, but something in his tone suggested the progress came at considerable cost. "The Duke has grown suspicious. He has doubled his personal guard and limited his communications." That night, when Lucian came to her bed, Artemis sensed a difference in his approach. His movements were less mechanical, his touch less impersonal. At one point, their eyes met in the flickering candlelight, and she glimpsed something unexpected in his gaze, a loneliness so profound it seemed to echo through the very stones of the palace. The transaction was still loveless, still a fulfillment of their bargain rather than any expression of desire. But there were cracks appearing in the king's emotional armor, tiny fissures that revealed the man beneath the crown. When he finished and began to dress, Artemis spoke again, her voice barely above a whisper. "You carry great burdens, Your Majesty. The weight of a kingdom must be crushing at times." Lucian froze with his hand on the door handle, his back rigid with surprise. For a heartbeat, she thought he might turn around, might acknowledge the humanity they had glimpsed in each other. Instead, he left without a word, but his silence spoke volumes. The third day dawned grey and storm-lashed, matching Artemis's turbulent emotions. She had been granted permission to walk in the palace's private gardens, a privilege that spoke to some softening in the king's attitude toward her. As she strolled among the rose bushes, now bare and thorny in the autumn chill, she tried to understand the complex man who held her son's fate in his hands. That evening, Lucian arrived soaked from the rain, having been caught in the downpour during an inspection of the castle's defences. Water dripped from his dark hair, and his usual immaculate appearance was dishevelled. "You should change into dry clothes," Artemis suggested, the words escaping before she could stop them. The king stared at her in surprise, as if amazed by this small expression of concern. "You worry for my health, Lady Lavali. Given our circumstances." There was something almost vulnerable in his question, a hint that her unexpected care had touched him in ways he hadn't anticipated. "I have learned that even kings are mortal," she replied carefully. Lucian changed behind a screen, and when he emerged, instead of immediately proceeding with their arrangement, he sat by the fire and stared into the dancing flames. "Your son fares well," he said suddenly, breaking the comfortable silence. "I have ordered improvements to his conditions, better food, clean bedding, and a private cell away from common criminals." Gratitude swelled in Artemis's chest, bringing tears to her eyes. "Thank you, Your Majesty." "Do not thank me," he replied with some harshness. "It is merely part of our agreement." But they both knew that was untrue. Nothing in their bargain had specified better treatment for Damien before his eventual release. This was an act of unexpected mercy, a gesture that revealed the king's capacity for compassion even within their corrupt arrangement. That night, when Lucian finally came to her bed, everything had changed. His hands were no longer cold instruments of possession, but searching, exploring, as if seeking to understand, rather than simply to take. For the first time he kissed her, tentatively, almost shyly, as if asking permission for this intimacy that went beyond their contract. Afterward, instead of his usual immediate departure, he remained beside her, both of them staring at the ceiling as shadows danced across the ornate moulding. "This palace holds too many secrets," he murmured, his voice barely audible above the crackling fire. "Sometimes I feel as though its walls are closing in, suffocating me with the weight of duty and deception." Artemis didn't respond immediately, but she felt something fundamental shifting within her chest. The monster of their first night was revealing glimpses of his humanity, and that transformation was more dangerous than any physical violation. It was easier to hate a tyrant than to understand a complex man trapped by the demands of absolute power. The fourth day brought unexpected gifts. Artemis awoke to find a leather-bound volume of poetry on the table beside her bed, its pages worn smooth by countless readings. Inside the cover, written in elegant script, was a simple note, "For the empty hours." The gesture puzzled and moved her in equal measure. This was not the action of a heartless despot, but of a man who recognized her intelligence and sought to ease her captivity in whatever small way he could manage. Later, as she walked through the gardens with her guard escort, Artemis encountered the king meeting with his advisors near a marble fountain. Upon seeing her, he dismissed the men with a gesture and approached alone. "Lady Lavali," he greeted formally, though his eyes held warmth that hadn't been there during their first encounter. "I trust you find the gardens pleasant?" "Very much so, Your Majesty. I am grateful for your consideration." Lucian nodded, and for a moment seemed uncertain how to proceed. Their interactions during daylight hours required different protocols than their evening arrangements, and both struggled with the complexity of their relationship. "I have news," he said finally. "We are close to obtaining definitive evidence against Duke Giancarlo. One of his servants has agreed to testify in exchange for protection and gold." "That is welcome news indeed," Artemis replied, though she felt a strange pang at the thought of their arrangement ending. Might I be permitted to see Damien, even briefly?" The request seemed to surprise the king. "It would be risky. The Duke has informants throughout the palace. If he suspects I am investigating the case more thoroughly than appearances suggest—" "I understand," she conceded, hiding her disappointment. Lucian studied her face carefully, noting the sadness she tried to conceal. However, a brief visit could perhaps be arranged tomorrow, with proper precautions, of course. The gratitude that flooded through Artemis was so intense it left her momentarily dizzy. "Thank you, Your Majesty. Your kindness means more than you can know." "Why, Lucian," he said suddenly, the name dropping between them like a stone into still water. "When we are alone, you may call me Lucian." Before she could respond to this unprecedented breach of protocol, the king bowed formally and strode away down the garden path, leaving Artemis staring after him with a racing heart and a growing confusion about her own feelings. The fourth night arrived with Artemis in a state of emotional turmoil. The man she had initially reviled as a monster was revealing layers of complexity that challenged her every assumption. When Lucian entered carrying 2 goblets of wine, she accepted one without hesitation. "I thought we might talk before fulfilling our agreement," he said, settling into a chair near the fire. As they sipped the rich vintage, Lucian began to reveal the true scope of Duke Giancarlo's treachery. The conspiracy reached far beyond Damien's false charges, encompassing years of systematic manipulation and the elimination of potential rivals. "Your husband," Lucian said quietly, his eyes fixed on the flames. "I have reason to believe his death was not the random tragedy it appeared to be." Artemis's goblet slipped from nerveless fingers, wine staining the silk carpet like blood. "Captain Lavali died in battle, defending the realm." A battle where crucial intelligence was deliberately withheld, where reinforcements were delayed by orders that passed through Giancarlo's hands, Lucian explained gently. "Your husband was utterly loyal to me, which made him an obstacle to certain ambitions." The revelation struck Artemis like a physical blow. Rodrigo's death, which she had mourned as a noble sacrifice, might have been calculated murder. The Duke had not only targeted her son, but had potentially orchestrated her husband's demise years earlier. "Why tell me this now?" she whispered through tears she couldn't control. Lucian rose and moved to the window, his silhouette stark against the star-filled night. "Because you deserve the truth, and because I have carried these suspicions alone for too long. The isolation of absolute power is crushing." There was such vulnerability in his admission that Artemis found herself rising and moving toward him, drawn by an impulse she didn't fully understand. "You are not the monster I believed you to be," she said softly. "Perhaps I am still a monster," Lucian replied, turning to face her. "But if so, it is circumstance and necessity that have shaped me, not inherent cruelty." That night when they came together, it was with a passion that neither had expected. The clinical transaction of previous evenings gave way to genuine desire, as if both had been starving for years and had finally found sustenance. Afterward, they lay entwined in the candlelight, sharing secrets and fears that neither had ever voiced before. "Tomorrow is our final night," Lucian murmured against her hair. "Yes," Artemis whispered, though the prospect brought pain rather than relief. The fifth and final day passed in a haze of conflicting emotions. As promised, Lucian arranged for Artemis to visit Damien's cell, a reunion that should have brought pure joy, but was complicated by the secret knowledge of how it had been purchased. Her son was thinner than before, but healthy, his spirit unbroken despite weeks of imprisonment. During their brief, supervised conversation, Artemis managed to convey hope without revealing the true nature of her sacrifice. "Have faith," she whispered as they parted. "Tomorrow will bring your freedom." That evening, Artemis dressed with special care, choosing a gown of deep sapphire that complemented her auburn hair. She let her tresses fall loose around her shoulders, abandoning the severe styles she usually favored. When Lucian arrived, he stopped short at the sight of her transformed appearance. "You are beautiful," he said simply, and the genuine admiration in his voice made her heart race. "Tonight I am not the desperate woman who accepted your bargain," she replied, moving toward him with newfound confidence. "Nor are you the calculating king who proposed it. Tonight we are simply two people who have found something unexpected amidst the darkness." They made love with the bittersweet intensity of those who know their time is ending, each caress a farewell, each kiss a promise they might never be able to fulfill. Afterward, as dawn approached, they talked of the future that awaited them both. "Duke Giancarlo will be arrested this morning," Lucian said, tracing patterns on her bare shoulder. "We have all the evidence needed for a conviction. Damien will be officially exonerated and released. And I will return to my estates," Artemis added, though the words felt like stones in her throat. Lucian propped himself up on an elbow, studying her face in the grey pre-dawn light. "Is that truly what you wish? The question hung between them, heavy with possibility and pain. Artemis understood what he was really asking, the impossible dream he was offering to share. "What alternative could there be?" she asked, though her heart was racing. "I am a provincial widow, and you are a king. The court would never accept such a match." "I have spent my entire life doing what others expected," Lucian replied with quiet intensity. "Perhaps it is time I chose my own path, regardless of convention." "And what path would that be?" "One that leads to you," he answered without hesitation. "Your strength, your integrity, the way you see past the crown to the man beneath it. I have never known such clarity of purpose." Artemis felt tears gathering in her eyes. Could this twisted beginning truly transform into something beautiful? The nobles would rebel. Your advisors would call it madness. "Let them," Lucian said with the confidence of absolute power. "I will not ask for your answer now. I know that what I did, how this all began, was unconscionable. But when this crisis is resolved, when your son is free, and you have had time to heal from what I put you through, I will formally request your consideration, not as the result of our bargain, but as a free choice made by a free woman." Artemis nodded, too moved to speak. The respect implicit in his words, the recognition of her autonomy, meant more than any grand declaration of love. They held each other as the sun rose over Monte Cribia, both understanding that everything would change with the dawn. When Lucian finally dressed to leave, he paused at the door for one final moment. "Whatever you ultimately decide," he said softly, "these nights have changed something fundamental within me. For that transformation, I will be eternally grateful." The arrest of Duke Giancarlo sent shockwaves through the court. Royal guards stormed his chambers at dawn, discovering not only evidence of the conspiracy against King Lucian, but also proof of years of corruption, extortion, and secret murders. The Duke's network of treachery ran deeper than anyone had imagined, touching every level of the kingdom's hierarchy. Damien's release came swiftly after the Duke's arrest. Artemis waited in the main courtyard, her heart pounding as she watched her son emerge from the palace dungeons. He was pale but walked with dignity intact, his faith in justice ultimately vindicated. Their embrace needed no words, containing all the love and relief that couldn't be expressed in mere language. Throughout the emotional reunion, Artemis was acutely aware that King Lucian was not present. Affairs of state demanded his attention as the kingdom reeled from the revelations of Giancarlo's betrayal, but she had hoped for one final glimpse of the man who had become so much more than her captor. When she returned to her chambers to gather her belongings, Artemis found a small wooden chest and a sealed letter waiting on her bed. The letter bore no royal insignia, only red wax impressed with a simple seal. With trembling fingers, she broke the seal and unfolded the parchment. Artemis, by the time you read these words, you will be free of our arrangement, and your son will be officially cleared of all charges. He may return to his duties in the royal guard if he chooses, or accompany you to your estates with full honors restored to your family name. The chest contains compensation for your time in the palace. This is not payment for services rendered, but restitution for the days I stole from your life through my unconscionable demand. I will not ask you to forget how this began. I do not deserve such mercy, but I hope you will remember that what grew between us was real, regardless of its twisted origins. Matters of state compel me to marry Princess Isabella of Valterna within the year. The alliance is crucial for maintaining peace with our eastern neighbors, especially now that Giancarlo's treachery has weakened our position with other noble houses. Therefore, the path I wish to offer you is closed before it could truly open. Live well, Artemis Lavalli. Know that you leave behind a better man than the one you first encountered in this palace. The lessons you taught me about strength, dignity, and the true meaning of sacrifice will guide me through the dark days ahead. Forever in your debt, Artemis read the letter 3 times, memorizing every word before holding it to a candle flame. As she watched the parchment turn to ash, she felt a chapter of her life closing with painful finality. The chest contained more gold than she had ever seen, enough to secure not only her future and Damien's, but also to transform their estates and provide for generations to come. It was a fortune that spoke of genuine remorse and respect, not the casual payment of a transaction completed. She closed the chest without touching the coins and gave it to Damien when they departed that afternoon. "What is this, mother?" her son asked, startled by the weight of the treasure. "Our future," she replied simply, "and the price of hard-learned wisdom." The months that followed brought remarkable changes to Montecribia. King Lucian, after Duke Giancarlo's execution for high treason, implemented sweeping reforms that transformed the kingdom. Taxes on common folk were reduced, corrupt officials were purged from government, and new laws protected the rights of those without noble birth. The king seems like a different man, people whispered in marketplaces and taverns, as if something has awakened his conscience. Artemis followed these developments from her distant estates, where she worked alongside Damien to improve conditions for their tenants and expand their holdings. She tried not to think too often of Lucian, though sometimes on lonely evenings she would remember his voice, his unexpected gentleness, and the vulnerability he had shown only to her. 3 years later, royal duties brought King Lucian on a tour of the northern provinces, including the Lavalans. It was an official visit, part of a larger progress through the realm, but everyone understood that the monarch had personally insisted on this particular stop. Artemis received him with all proper ceremony, flanked by Queen Isabella, a gracious and intelligent woman who seemed to respect her husband even if she did not love him. The royal entourage brought color and pageantry to the simple manor house, transforming the familiar surroundings into something magical and strange. During the formal dinner, Artemis's and Lucian's eyes met briefly across the candlelit table. In that instant of connection, she saw acknowledgement, acceptance, and a grief that time had softened but never fully healed. No words were exchanged beyond the requirements of protocol, but that silent communication contained everything that needed to be said. When the royal party departed the next morning, Damien found his mother standing on the hill that overlooked their flourishing lands. The young man had grown into his father's strength and his mother's wisdom, becoming a leader their people trusted and respected. "You never told me exactly what happened during those days at the palace," he said gently, placing a hand on her shoulder. "But I want you to know that whatever sacrifice you made for my freedom, I honor it every day by striving to be worthy of such love." Artemis covered her son's hand with her own, gazing out at the golden fields that stretched toward the horizon. "It was not a sacrifice in the end," she said with quiet satisfaction. "It was an exchange. I gave something precious, but I received something equally valuable in return." "What did you receive, mother?" "Power. What did you receive, mother?" She considered the question carefully, thinking of all she had learned about power, mercy, the complex nature of human hearts, and the possibility of redemption even in the darkest circumstances. "Understanding," she finally answered, "about the true meaning of strength, and how sometimes the greatest freedom comes from the most difficult choices." At Monte Cribia, that same evening, King Lucian stood alone on his private balcony, gazing at the stars that had witnessed both his greatest shame and his most profound transformation. In his hands, he held the same volume of poetry he had once given to Artemis, opened to a verse about love that blooms in impossible soil but leaves seeds that flower in unexpected places. Neither spoke of their brief transformative connection to another soul, but both carried its memory like a secret treasure, separated by duty and circumstance, but united by shared understanding. Two hearts had found their peace on different paths that had once, for 5 nights that changed everything, intertwined beneath the ancient stones of Monte Cribia. The kingdom prospered under Lucian's enlightened rule, and the Lavali estates became known throughout the realm for their prosperity and the fairness of their governance. History would remember King Lucian as a wise and just ruler, though it would never record the source of his transformation. Some lessons, some loves, and some sacrifices are too profound and personal for the pages of official chronicles. But in the private moments when autumn winds whispered through palace corridors or across distant fields, two souls remembered the price of mercy and the unexpected grace that can emerge from the darkest bargains between desperate hearts. The room was cold, so cold that Anna could see her breath in the grey morning light. She sat on the hard wooden floor, her thin dress barely keeping out the chill. Her mother stood by the door, arms crossed, eyes hard as stone. "Look at her," her mother said to Anna's father. "Just look at her." Anna kept her head down. She knew what they saw. A girl of 20 with plain brown hair, a girl who limped when she walked. A girl who brought them nothing but shame. "She's useless," her father replied. His voice was tired, bitter. "No man will ever want her, not with that leg." Anna's heart broke a little more. She had heard these words so many times, but they still cut deep, still made her feel small. "The limp makes her look weak," her mother continued, "and that face, so plain, so ordinary." Anna touched her leg without thinking. The one that never worked quite right, the one that made her different, made her unwanted. She remembered being a child, wanting her mother's hugs, wanting kind words. Instead, she got cold looks, sharp words, endless disappointment. "I tried to love you," her mother had said once, "but you're just broken." Now, at 20, nothing had changed. Anna still hoped, still dreamed of someone who might see past her limp, someone who might think she was worth something. But hope was getting harder to hold on to. Her father cleared his throat. "The papers are signed," he said. "She goes tomorrow." Anna's head snapped up. "What papers?" Her mother smiled. "But it wasn't kind. It was cold, cruel. We found you work, dear daughter. You'll be a servant now." "A servant?" Anna's voice was barely a whisper. "Count yourself lucky," her father said. "Someone was willing to take you, even with your problems." Anna felt the world spinning. They were selling her. actually selling her like she was nothing, like she was just a thing they wanted gone. "Where?" she asked. Her voice shook. "Duke Leon's estate," her mother said. "You'll cook, clean, do whatever he tells you, and Anna," her voice turned sharp, "don't embarrass us more than you already have." Anna stood slowly. Her bad leg made her wobble, but she found her balance. She always did. "What if I don't want to go?" Her father laughed. It wasn't a happy sound. "You'll go or you'll starve. Those are your choices." Anna looked around the small room. This cold, loveless place had been her prison for 20 years. Now she was trading it for another prison, a stranger's house where she would scrub floors and bow her head. But somewhere deep inside, somewhere she barely dared to listen, a small voice whispered something different. Maybe this change would be different too. Maybe, im sort time, to the king signs the me often, to found at all is the presence of wisdom in knowing when not to speak. 50 miles away, Duke Leon stood at his window. The morning light made his dark hair shine. His shoulders were broad, his stance was strong, but his grey eyes held sadness. The castle around him was beautiful. Rich tapestries hung on stone walls. Fine furniture filled every room. Servants moved quietly through long hallways. But Leon felt alone, always alone. He touched the scar on his left hand, a reminder of the war, of the battles he had fought, of the friends he had lost. People called him brave, called him a hero, but Leon knew the truth. War had taken pieces of his soul, pieces he could never get back. He had money, land, power, everything a man was supposed to want, but none of it filled the empty space inside him. His secretary knocked on the door. "Your Grace? The papers you requested." Leon turned. "The girl's contract?" "Yes, sir. Anna Miller, age 20, no family money, no prospects." The secretary paused. "Sir, if I may ask, why her? There are many servants available, ones with better references." Leon took the papers. He had heard Anna's story from a friend in town, a girl sold by her own family, a girl with a limp that made people look away, a girl that no one wanted. "She needs help," Leon said simply. His secretary looked confused. "Help, sir?" Leon studied Anna's signature on the contract. The letters were small, careful, like she was afraid to take up too much space, even on paper. "No one should be sold like cattle," Leon said. His voice was quiet but firm. "No one should feel worthless." The secretary nodded but still looked puzzled. He didn't understand. How could he? He had never felt unwanted, never felt broken. But Leon understood. He had his own scars, his own reasons for feeling damaged. The war had taught him something important. Everyone deserved dignity. Everyone deserved kindness, even if the world told them they were worth nothing. Leon walked to his desk. He picked up his pen and signed his name at the bottom of the contract. "Send word," he told his secretary. "She arrives tomorrow. Make sure her room is warm. Make sure she has good food waiting." "Yes, Your Grace." After the secretary left, Leon stood alone again. He looked out at his vast lands, at the forests and fields that stretched to the horizon. Tomorrow, those lands would have one more person living on them, one more soul seeking shelter. Leon had saved soldiers in battle, had protected his people during hard winters, but saving Anna felt different, more personal. Maybe because he saw something of himself in her story, the feeling of being damaged, of carrying scars that others couldn't understand. Or maybe because saving her felt like saving a part of himself too, the part that still believed broken things could be made whole again. "Tam, how to Buta, how to Piaf." Anna's hands shook as the carriage stopped. Through the small window, she could see the castle. It was bigger than anything she had ever imagined. Stone walls reached up toward grey clouds. Windows glittered like jewels. She felt so small, so out of place. The carriage door opened. A kind-faced woman in a clean dress smiled at her. "You must be Anna," the woman said. "I'm Mrs. Sarah. I run the household here." Anna stepped out carefully. Her bad leg was stiff from the long ride. She nearly stumbled but caught herself on the carriage door. "Easy there," Mrs. Sarah said gently. "Take your time." Anna looked down at her old dress. It was patched in 3 places. Her shoes had holes. Next to this grand castle she felt like a beggar. "His Grace is waiting to meet you," Mrs. Sarah said. "Don't worry, he's very kind." Anna's stomach dropped. "He wants to see me. Now?" "Yes, dear. Just to welcome you properly." Anna had expected to be sent straight to the kitchens, to start scrubbing pots immediately. She had never met a duke before. What if she said something wrong? What if her limp made him angry? Mrs. Sarah led her through massive wooden doors. Anna's eyes went wide. The entrance hall was like a cathedral. Paintings covered the walls. A grand staircase curved up toward the ceiling. Her footsteps echoed on the marble floor. Step, drag, step, drag. The sound of her limp seemed so loud in the quiet space. They stopped outside a wooden door. Mrs. Sarah knocked softly. "Come in," said a voice from inside. It was deep, strong, but not harsh. The door opened. Anna saw him standing by a fireplace. Duke Leon was tall. His dark hair was neat. His clothes were fine but not flashy. But it was his eyes that surprised her. They were kind, warm, not cold like she had expected. "Your Grace," Mrs. Sarah said, "this is Anna." Anna dropped into the lowest curtsy she could manage. Her bad leg made her wobble, but she held it. She kept her eyes on the floor. "Please," Duke Leon said, "lift your head." Anna hesitated. At home, looking directly at someone important was considered rude, but his voice was gentle, not commanding. Slowly she raised her eyes to meet his. He smiled, a real smile, not the fake ones she was used to seeing. "Welcome to my home, Anna," he said. "I hope you'll be happy here." Happy? Anna blinked. No one had ever asked if she would be happy anywhere. "Thank you, Your Grace," she whispered. Her voice was so quiet she wasn't sure he heard. "Are you tired from your journey?" he asked. Anna nodded. "Mrs. Sarah will show you to your room. You can rest tonight. We'll talk about your duties tomorrow." Anna waited for the list of harsh rules, the threats about what would happen if she made mistakes. They never came. Instead, Duke Leon said something that made her heart skip. "You're safe here, Anna. I want you to know that." Safe. When was the last time she had felt safe? "Mrs. Sarah," Duke Leon continued, "please make sure Anna has everything she needs. A warm bath, good food, clean clothes." "Of course, Your Grace." Anna stood there, confused. This was nothing like what she had expected. Where were the cold orders, the harsh discipline? As Mrs. Sarah led her toward the door, Duke Leon called out one more time, "Anna." She turned back. "If you need anything at all, please ask. This is your home now too." Anna felt tears starting in her eyes. She blinked them back quickly, but not before she saw something in Duke Leon's face. Understanding, like he knew what it felt like to be lost. "Thank you," she whispered again. And for the first time in years, she meant it. Anna woke up in the softest bed she had ever slept in. For a moment she forgot where she was. Then she remembered. The castle, Duke Leon, her new life. Sunlight streamed through clean windows. The room was small but warm. A fire crackled in the fireplace. Clean clothes waited on a chair. At home, she had slept on a thin mattress on the floor. The room had been cold, always cold. A gentle knock came at her door. "Anna, it's Mrs. Sarah. May I come in?" "Yes, ma'am." Mrs. Sarah entered with a tray of food, fresh bread, warm milk, butter and jam. "Good morning, dear. How did you sleep?" Very well, thank you. Anna sat up carefully. Is this really for me? Mrs. Sarah smiled. Of course, His Grace wants to make sure you eat well. Anna took a bite of the bread. It was soft, sweet, nothing like the hard crusts she was used to. What are my duties? Anna asked. I can start right away. Finish your breakfast first, Mrs. Sarah said. Then I'll show you around. We'll start you with light tasks, helping in the kitchen, organizing books in the library. Light tasks. Anna was confused. At home, she had done all the heavy work, scrubbing floors until her knees bled, carrying water buckets that were too heavy. Her family said if she couldn't be pretty, she could at least be useful. After breakfast, Mrs. Sarah gave Anna a tour. The castle was enormous, room after room filled with beautiful things. Anna tried not to stare, but everything was so grand. In the kitchen, she met the cook, a cheerful woman named Mary. So you're Anna, Mary said. Mrs. Sarah told me about you. Can you help me with the bread today? Anna nodded eagerly. She knew how to make bread. She had been doing it since she was small. But when she tried to knead the dough, something went wrong. The mixture was different here, softer. She pressed too hard and it stuck to her hands. Oh no, Anna said, pulling at the sticky mess. I'm sorry, I ruined it. Mary laughed. Not mean laughter, kind laughter. Don't worry, dear. This dough is tricky. Here, let me show you. She helped Anna work the dough gently, patiently, without a single harsh word. At home, mistakes meant shouting, sometimes worse. Here, mistakes meant help. Later that afternoon, Anna was carrying books in the library. Her arms were full. She didn't see the step. Her bad leg caught, and she stumbled. Books scattered everywhere. Anna dropped to her knees, scrambling to pick them up. Her face burned with shame. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Are you hurt? Anna looked up. Duke Leon stood in the doorway. His face showed concern, not anger. I dropped your books. I'll fix them. I promise. Duke Leon walked over and knelt down beside her. He started gathering books too. They're just books, Anna. Are you hurt? That's what matters. Anna stared at him, a duke, kneeling on the floor, helping her clean up her mess. My leg, she said quietly. Sometimes it doesn't work right. I noticed, he said gently. It doesn't matter to me. He helped her stand. His hand was warm and steady. Would you like me to carry these for you? He asked. Anna shook her head quickly. No, Your Grace. I can do it. I'm sure you can, he said. But that doesn't mean you have to do it alone. Together they carried the books to their proper places. Duke Leon didn't seem bothered by her slow pace. He didn't look impatient when she had to stop to rest her leg. That evening, Anna sat by her window. She thought about the day. No one had yelled at her. No one had called her worthless. When she made mistakes, people helped her fix them. It felt like a dream, a beautiful, impossible dream. But dreams could end. Anna knew that. She had to be careful. She had to work hard. She couldn't let herself believe this kindness would last forever. Still, for tonight, she let herself feel something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. Offing by Deptude Mo Ping, Condottils to Ping Tai, Batil Mund, the powerful two win to Stlorders Weni Tosti. 3 weeks passed like days. Anna had never lived before. Each morning brought new surprises, new kindnesses she didn't expect. Mrs. Sarah taught her to arrange flowers. Mary showed her recipes for fine pastries. Even the other servants were friendly. They included her in their conversations, asked her opinions. But it was in the herb garden where Anna truly began to shine. Duke Leon found her there one afternoon. She was kneeling by a patch of plants, carefully picking leaves. "What are you doing?" he asked. Anna looked up, startled. "I'm sorry, Your Grace. I know I should ask first, but Mary mentioned that Tom hurt his back yesterday, and these herbs, they help with pain." She held up the small green leaves. My grandmother taught me about healing plants before she died. This is chamomile, and this. She moved to another plant. This is willow bark. Together they make a tea that eases aching muscles. Duke Leon knelt beside her. Show me. Anna's hands moved confidently as she explained each plant, how to prepare them, how much to use, which ones helped with fever, which ones aided sleep. You know a great deal about this, Duke Leon said. He sounded impressed. Anna felt her cheeks warm. It's not much, just old knowledge. Old knowledge is often the best knowledge, he replied. Would you be willing to help when people are sick? We don't have a healer in the castle. Anna's eyes went wide. You want me to help heal people? If you'd like to. Only if you'd like to. Anna thought about her grandmother, the woman who had been the only person to show her love as a child. Her grandmother had said Anna had gentle hands, a caring heart, perfect for healing work. But her mother had forbidden it. No one wants healing from a crippled girl, she had said. They'll think you'll make them worse. Now Duke Leon was asking her to use that gift, to help people. Yes, Anna said softly, I would like that very much. From that day forward, Anna spent her mornings in the herb garden. She dried plants, mixed teas, created salves for cuts and bruises. Word spread quickly. The stable boy came to her with a twisted ankle. She wrapped it carefully and gave him tea for the pain. 3 days later, he was walking normally. The cook's daughter had a fever. Anna made a cool compress and bitter tea. The fever broke by morning. One of the maids suffered from headaches that kept her awake at night. Anna created a special pillow filled with lavender. The headaches stopped. Each success made Anna stand a little straighter, walk with more confidence. Her limp was still there, but it no longer felt like a burden. It was just part of how she moved through the world. People began seeking her out, not because they pitied her, because they trusted her knowledge, respected her skills. Anna, Mrs. Sarah said one evening, I've never seen anything like it. You have a true gift. Anna smiled. For the first time in her life, she felt useful, truly useful. Not because she could scrub floors or carry heavy things, but because she could help people feel better, make their pain go away. Duke Leon often found reasons to visit the herb garden. He would ask questions about the plants, listen carefully to her explanations. Sometimes he would just sit quietly while she worked. You're different now, he said one afternoon. Anna looked up from the mint she was drying. Different how? Confident, happy. You move like you belong here. Anna considered this. It was true. She did feel like she belonged. For the first time in her life, she had found her place in the world. Thank you, she said, for giving me this chance. Duke Leon smiled. You gave yourself the chance, Anna. I just didn't get in your way. That evening, Anna looked at herself in the small mirror in her room. The face looking back was still plain. Her legs still didn't work perfectly, but something had changed. She looked content, peaceful, like she finally knew who she was supposed to be. Not the broken girl her parents saw, not the useless burden they had sold. She was Anna the healer, Anna who helped people, Anna who mattered. And that made all the difference. Tamish fortus tomend, Dothen gweg is windelaikum yade portum down nastant wasaken, nakti of suli off your paid. Summer evening brought soft air and the scent of roses. Anna finished her work in the herb garden as the sun set. She was gathering her tools when she heard footsteps. Duke Leon approached, but his usual confident walk seemed slower tonight, heavier. Good evening, Anna, he said, but his voice carried sadness. Good evening, Your Grace. Anna studied his face. Are you well? You seem tired. He managed a small smile. You notice everything, don't you? Anna felt bold enough to speak honestly. You've been kind to me. I care if something troubles you. Duke Leon was quiet for a long moment. Then he gestured toward a stone bench near the garden wall. "Would you sit with me, if you're not too tired?" Anna nodded and settled beside him, leaving proper distance between them. The evening air was warm on her face. "Today marks 5 years," Duke Leon said quietly. "5 years?" "Since the Battle of Millbrook. Since I lost." He stopped, started again. "Since many good men died under my command." Anna waited. She had learned that sometimes people needed silence to find their words. "I was young then, 25. I thought I knew everything about war, about leadership." His hands clenched into fists. "I made a decision, ordered my men to charge when we should have waited. 17 soldiers died because of my mistake." Anna's heart ached for the pain in his voice. "Among them was my closest friend, David. We grew up together, learned to ride together. He trusted me completely." Duke Leon's voice broke slightly. "He died calling my name." "I'm sorry," Anna whispered. "That must carry terrible weight." "It does, every day." He looked at her then. "People call me a hero for that battle. We won, you see, but I know the truth. I know what my pride cost." Anna thought carefully before speaking. Guilt can be useful. It teaches us, makes us more careful with other people's lives, but it can also become a prison. Duke Leon turned to study her face. "You speak like someone who knows about guilt." Anna's throat tightened. She had never told anyone this story, but something about the evening, about his honesty, made her want to share. "My baby brother died when I was 12, she said softly. "His name was Peter. He was only 2 years old, perfect and sweet and beautiful." She picked at the fabric of her dress. "I was watching him while Mother worked. He was playing near the well. I got distracted, started picking flowers. When I looked up, she couldn't finish." "Oh, Anna. If I hadn't been lame, I could have run faster, could have reached him in time." Mother never said it out loud, but I saw it in her eyes. She blamed me. I blamed myself. They sat in silence as darkness gathered around them. "Is that why your mother was so cold to you?" Duke Leon asked gently. Anna nodded. She loved Peter so much. After he died, there was no room left in her heart for me, especially not for the daughter who let him fall. "That wasn't your fault, Anna. You were just a child yourself." "I know that now, in my mind, but my heart still carries the weight." Duke Leon reached over slowly, carefully. He placed his hand over hers on the bench between them. "We're quite a pair, aren't we?" he said softly, "both carrying ghosts." Anna looked down at their joined hands. His was warm and strong. Hers looked small and pale beneath it, but he didn't seem to mind. "Maybe that's why I feel so comfortable here," she said. "You understand what it's like to live with regret. And you understand that some wounds never fully heal." They sat together as stars appeared overhead. Neither spoke, but Anna felt a connection deeper than words. Two people who had learned that life could be cruel, that good intentions sometimes led to terrible outcomes, that surviving meant carrying scars others couldn't see. But also two people who had chosen to keep trying, to keep caring, despite the risk of being hurt again. When Duke Leon finally stood to leave, he squeezed her hand gently. "Thank you," he said, "for listening, for understanding. Thank you for trusting me with your story." After he was gone, Anna remained on the bench. She touched the place where his hand had covered hers. Her heart was beating faster than usual. Something had changed between them tonight. Something important. She cared about Duke Leon more than a servant should care about her master, more than gratitude or respect. She was beginning to love him. The thought terrified her. Love had only brought her pain before, but as she looked up at the stars, she couldn't bring herself to regret it. Some risks were worth taking, even for someone like her. Vi nokkol drumpel de prommen de rich of a tonsen dingets betukol, or for Sun and Pete, To be the heaven a world of warrior, waniden core of the pace into you can call, to buy two, to bastion of resign is also nori do it be stroken call, yori finds us with the quartov and the quartable bush to pold on with 90, you we can toes, of line to one fine, dovtum and I, comes and twitterai. The letter arrived on a Tuesday morning in early autumn. Anna was mixing healing teas in the kitchen when Mrs. Sarah found her. Anna, dear, this came for you. Anna wiped her hands on her apron and took the envelope. Her name was written in her mother's sharp handwriting. Her stomach dropped. She hadn't heard from her family since arriving at the castle. She had hoped they had forgotten about her completely. With trembling fingers, she opened the letter. Anna, we hear you live well now, too well for someone like you. We need money. Send 50 coins, or we tell everyone what you really are. A cursed girl who killed her baby brother. We arrive in 1 week. My bother, mother tupitamaudi dodma. Mother tupitamaudi not to nocti stupipithpo. Mother tupitamaudi jeti stititi wide. We don't have one doctors to the precared motig maids just to the newer. We lualok, mau awful capsules. We lualasher be what you taxed be sense with. A nepster doctors, by not wolpa. My bite should to bite in a cupatristi pocker, wobbling with wistive. Anna felt the world spinning. She gripped the kitchen table to stay upright. Anna, Mrs. Sarah touched her arm. What's wrong? You look pale. I need some air, Anna whispered. She stumbled outside to the herb garden, her safe place. But even here, she couldn't escape the words in the letter. They were coming. Her family was coming to destroy everything she had built. Anna sank onto her usual bench and buried her face in her hands. What would happen when people learned the truth, that she had been responsible for Peter's death, that her own family considered her cursed? Duke Leon would send her away. He had to. No one would want a cursed girl living in their home, healing their people. All the respect she had earned, all the friendships she had made, gone. Anna? She looked up to find Duke Leon approaching. His face was full of concern. Mrs. Sarah said, "You received bad news." Anna quickly folded the letter and hid it in her skirt. "It's nothing, Your Grace, just family matters." But Duke Leon knew her too well now. He could read the fear in her eyes. What kind of family matters? Anna stood and turned away from him. "Please don't ask. I can't tell you." "Anna." His voice was gentle but firm. "Whatever it is, we can face it together." Together, the word made her heart ache. There would be no together once he knew the truth. "You don't understand," she said. "Some things can't be fixed. Some people are just broken." "I don't believe that." Anna spun around to face him. Tears burned her eyes. "My baby brother is dead because of me. My own mother thinks I'm cursed. I bring nothing but tragedy to everyone I love." The words hung in the air between them. Duke Leon's face went very still. "Tell me what happened," he said quietly. So Anna told him everything about Peter playing by the well, about her picking flowers, about being too slow to save him, about her mother's cold eyes and harsh words. "They're coming here," she finished. "Next week. They want money to keep quiet about what I am." Duke Leon was silent for a long time. Anna waited for him to tell her to pack her things, to leave before she brought more tragedy to his home. Instead, he stepped closer. "Look at me, Anna." She reluctantly met his eyes. "You are not cursed. You are not broken. You are a healer who has helped dozens of people. You are kind and gentle and good. But Peter's death was a terrible accident, nothing more. You were 12 years old, Anna, a child watching another child." Anna wanted to believe him, but the guilt was so deep, so old. "Your family is wrong about you," Duke Leon continued, "and I won't let them hurt you again. You don't understand what they're like, what they'll say about me, about you for keeping me here." Duke Leon's jaw tightened. "Let me worry about that." That evening, Anna barely touched her dinner. She paced her room like a caged animal. Every day brought her family closer. Every day brought her closer to losing everything. She had been happy here, truly happy. For the first time in her life she had felt valuable, loved. But happiness wasn't meant for people like her. She should have known it wouldn't last. Outside her window, storm clouds gathered on the horizon. Anna watched them approach and felt they matched the darkness coming toward her life. In 1 week, everything would change. She just hoped Duke Leon wouldn't hate her too much when it was over. They arrived like vultures circling prey. Anna's mother, father, and older brother Thomas, all dressed in their finest clothes, but Anna could still see the meanness in their eyes. Duke Leon had insisted on meeting them in the main hall. Anna stood beside him, her hands shaking despite her efforts to stay calm. "So this is where our Anna lives now," her mother said, looking around with obvious greed. "Very nice indeed." Anna's father stepped forward and bowed slightly to Duke Leon. "Your Grace, we've come to collect our daughter." "Collect her?" Duke Leon's voice was calm but cold. "Anna is not property to be collected." Anna's brother Thomas laughed. It was an ugly sound. "She's our family, our responsibility. We've decided she's been away long enough. And I'm sure it has nothing to do with the money you've demanded from her," Duke Leon said. Anna's mother's face turned red. "That girl told you about our private family business?" "Anna tells me everything," Duke Leon replied, "because she knows she can trust me." Anna felt a surge of gratitude. He was protecting her, standing between her and their cruelty. "You don't know what she really is," Anna's mother hissed. "What she's done. If you did, you'd send her away yourself." "I know exactly who Anna is," Duke Leon said firmly. "She's a healer, a kind woman who helps others, someone with more worth than the three of you combined." Anna's father stepped forward angrily. "That cursed girl killed our son, her own baby brother. She brings nothing but death and misery." Anna flinched as if she'd been slapped. Even knowing they would say it, hearing the words still hurt. But then something unexpected happened. Duke Leon stepped protectively in front of Anna. His voice turned deadly quiet. "You will not speak of Anna that way in my home." Anna's family looked shocked. They weren't used to anyone defending her. "Now see here," her brother started. "No," Duke Leon cut him off. "You see here, Anna stays because she chooses to stay. She owes you nothing, not money, not explanations, nothing." Anna's mother tried a different approach. Her voice turned sweet and fake. "Anna, darling, come home with us. We miss you so much. We've learned to appreciate you better." Anna almost laughed. Appreciate her. They had sold her like cattle. But looking at their faces now, Anna realized something had changed. They looked smaller than she remembered, weaker. Their words had less power over her. She thought about the past months, the people she had healed, the friends she had made, the respect she had earned. She thought about Duke Leon's hand covering hers on the garden bench, the way he looked at her like she mattered. Anna stepped out from behind Duke Leon. Her bad leg was steady beneath her. Her voice was clear. "No," she said. Her family stared at her. "I said no. I'm not coming with you. This is my home now." Her mother's sweet mask dropped away. "You ungrateful little—" "I'm not ungrateful," Anna interrupted, something she had never done before. "I'm grateful every day, grateful to be away from people who made me feel worthless, grateful to live somewhere I'm valued for who I am." Her father stepped forward menacingly. "You'll do as you're told, girl." But Anna didn't back down. For the first time in her life, she stood her ground. "I'm 20 years old. I'm not a child anymore. You have no power over me." "We're your family," her brother shouted. "Family doesn't sell their daughter for coins," Anna replied. Family doesn't make someone feel ashamed for existing. You stopped being my family the day you signed those papers. Anna's mother's face twisted with rage. Fine, stay here. But when this man gets tired of your plain face and twisted leg, don't come crawling back to us. I won't need to, Anna said with quiet dignity. I know my worth now, and it has nothing to do with my face or my leg. Duke Leon moved to stand beside Anna, not in front of her anymore, beside her, as an equal. You heard her, he said to Anna's family. She's made her choice. I suggest you leave now. Anna's father looked like he wanted to argue more, but something in Duke Leon's voice warned him not to push further. Her family left the same way they had arrived, like vultures forced away from their prey. After they were gone, Anna sank into a chair. Her legs felt weak, but her spirit felt strong. You did it, Duke Leon said softly. You stood up to them. Anna looked at him with wonder. I did. I actually did. How do you feel? Anna thought about it. Free, she said finally. For the first time in my life, I feel truly free. Duke Leon smiled. Freedom looks good on you, Anna. And for the first time in her life, Anna believed she truly was good enough. Just as she was. Caethwen Brine to be I. News of Anna's confrontation with her family spread quickly through the castle, but instead of shame or pity, Anna found herself receiving congratulations. Good for you, dear, Mrs. Sarah said, while they arranged flowers. It was time someone put those awful people in their place. Mary the cook hugged her warmly. We're so glad you stayed, Anna. This castle wouldn't be the same without you. Even the stable boys and garden workers sought her out to tell her they were proud of her courage. Anna felt lighter than she had in years. The secret shame she had carried was gone. People knew her story now, and they still accepted her, still valued her. But it was Duke Leon's reaction that mattered most. She found him that evening in his study, reading by candlelight. May I come in? She asked softly. He looked up and smiled. Always. Anna settled into the chair across from his desk. I wanted to thank you for standing with me today. You didn't need my help, Duke Leon said. You found your own strength. But it was easier knowing you were there. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Duke Leon set down his book and looked at her seriously. Anna, I need to tell you something. The real reason I bought your contract. Anna's stomach fluttered nervously. The real reason? I told you I wanted to help someone who was being treated unfairly. That was true, but it wasn't the whole truth. Duke Leon stood and moved to the window. 3 years ago, I was engaged to be married. Lady Catherine, beautiful, wealthy from a perfect family, everything a duke should want. Anna felt a stab of something that might have been jealousy. But she was cold, Duke Leon continued. Cruel to servants. She once had a maid beaten for dropping a plate. When I saw that, I knew I couldn't marry someone without kindness in her heart. He turned back to Anna. When I heard about you, about a young woman being sold by her own family because they saw her as flawed, I thought about Catherine, about how society values the wrong things. Anna's heart was beating faster. I wanted to prove something, Duke Leon said quietly. That worth isn't about beauty or perfection. It's about character, about how we treat others, about the size of someone's heart. He walked closer to her chair. I never expected to fall in love with you. Anna's breath caught. Love? I love your gentleness with hurt people. I love how you see good in everyone. I love your quiet strength and your healing hands. He knelt beside her chair. I love that you chose to stay despite everything your family put you through. Anna felt tears starting. Happy tears this time. I love you too, she whispered. I have for months, but I didn't think, I never imagined, that someone could love you exactly as you are. Anna nodded. Duke Leon took her hands in his. Anna Miller, You are not broken. You are not cursed. You are the most beautiful woman I have ever known, not because of how you look, but because of who you are." He paused, his grey eyes serious. "Will you marry me?" Anna stared at him in shock. "Marry you? But I'm nobody. I limp when I walk. My family sold me. People will say I'm the luckiest man alive," Duke Leon interrupted, "because I'll be married to a woman who makes the world better just by being in it." Anna thought about the girl who had arrived at this castle months ago, broken, afraid, convinced she was worthless. Then she thought about who she was now, a healer, a woman who had stood up to her family, someone who was loved for exactly who she was. "Yes," she said, her voice growing stronger. "Yes, I'll marry you." Duke Leon's smile was brighter than all the candles in the room. When he kissed her, Anna felt something she had never experienced before: complete acceptance, complete love. Her limp didn't matter. Her plain face didn't matter. Her painful past didn't matter. All that mattered was this moment, this love, this future stretching out before them. Anna had been sold as a servant, but she had found something far more valuable than freedom. She had found herself, and in finding herself, she had found love. 2 years later, Anna stood at the same window where she had once watched storm clouds gather, but today the sky was bright blue. Children's laughter drifted up from the garden below. She placed a hand on her growing belly and smiled. In 4 months, she and Leon would welcome their first child, a baby who would never know the shame Anna had carried, a child who would grow up knowing they were loved and wanted. "How are you feeling?" Leon asked, entering their bedroom with a tray of tea. "Perfect," Anna said honestly, and she was. The healing garden had grown into something wonderful. Anna now trained 3 young women in the art of herbal medicine. People came from neighboring villages, seeking her help. Her reputation as a skilled healer had spread far beyond the castle walls. But more importantly, she had learned to heal herself. Anna still limped when she walked. She still had plain brown hair and an ordinary face, but she carried herself differently now, with confidence, with purpose, with the knowledge that she was exactly who she was meant to be. "The new students are working hard," Leon said, settling beside her. "Emma has real talent with the fever remedies." Anna nodded. Emma was a young girl from town whose family had initially hesitated to send her. They worried Anna's limp might somehow affect her teaching, but Emma's quick progress had changed their minds. "She reminds me of myself at that age," Anna said, eager to help people feel better. "Except she had a teacher who believed in her from the beginning," Leon pointed out. Anna thought about her grandmother, who had first shown her the healing plants, the only person in her childhood who had seen her potential. "I wish grandmother could see this," Anna said softly. "I think she can," Leon replied, kissing her temple. A knock came at the door. Mrs. Sarah entered with a young woman Anna didn't recognize. "Forgive the interruption," Mrs. Sarah said, "but this young lady has traveled a long way to see you, Anna." The woman stepped forward nervously. She was about Anna's age, with tired eyes and clothes that had seen better days. "Are you Anna, the healer?" she asked hopefully. "I am. My name is Grace. I heard you help people like me." Anna saw something familiar in Grace's expression, the look of someone who had been told she was worthless, someone who needed to know she mattered. "What kind of help do you need?" Anna asked gently. "I want to learn, to do something useful with my life, but I can't read very well, and I'm not pretty or clever like other girls." Anna smiled and moved toward Grace. Her limp was barely noticeable now, not because it was gone, but because she no longer tried to hide it. "Grace," she said warmly, "beauty and cleverness come in many forms. Let me show you something." She led Grace to the window overlooking the garden. Below, Emma was teaching two younger girls how to identify healing plants. Their faces were bright with interest and purpose. "See those girls?" Anna asked. 6 months ago, they all thought they had nothing special to offer the world. Now look at them. Grace watched with wonder as the students worked together, sharing knowledge and supporting each other. "You really think I could learn?" Grace asked quietly. "I know you can," Anna said with certainty, "because wanting to help people is the most important quality a healer can have. Everything else can be taught." As Anna began explaining the healing program to Grace, Leon watched from across the room. His heart swelled with pride and love. Anna had indeed been sold as a servant, but she had transformed that beginning into something beautiful. She had built a life of purpose and meaning. She had learned to see her own worth. And now she spent her days helping other women discover their worth too. That evening, Anna and Leon walked through their garden together. The herbs grew strong and healthy. The pathways were well tended. Everything showed the care and love that had been poured into this place. "Do you ever think about what would have happened if your family hadn't sold you?" Leon asked. Anna considered this. "Sometimes, but then I remember something important." "What's that?" "They thought they were getting rid of their problem, their burden." Anna smiled and took Leon's hand. "Instead, they gave me the chance to find my real family, my real home, my real self." She looked around at the castle that had become her sanctuary, at the gardens where she had discovered her gifts, at the man who loved her completely. "I was sold as a servant," she said softly, "but I found something much more valuable than freedom. I found who I was always meant to be." Leon squeezed her hand. "And who is that?" Anna stood taller, her voice filled with quiet confidence. "I'm Anna. I'm a healer. I'm a teacher. I'm a woman who knows her worth." She smiled. "And I'm home." Above them, stars began to appear in the darkening sky. Each one seemed to shine with the promise that broken things could indeed be made whole again. That love could heal even the deepest wounds. And that sometimes the worst beginning could lead to the most beautiful ending of all. Anna had learned the most important truth of all. She was never broken. She was never cursed. She was never worthless. She had always been exactly enough, just as she was.